So, this happened last summer. I was 25, and me and a few college buddies, Drew, Ty, and Wes, decided to go camping for the weekend. We picked a spot way out in the Catskills. No cell service, barely any people, and tons of trails to explore. It was supposed to be a chill, guys' weekend. Beer, fire, dumb stories. You know, just unplug and breathe for a couple days. First night was perfect. We set up camp near this river, made a huge fire, roasted some hot dogs, passed around a flask, and just laughed until we passed out. We all had our own tents. Mine was closest to the river. Drew's was next to mine, and the other two were maybe 10 feet away. Second day, we hiked most of it. About 12 miles round trip to a lookout point. We got back to camp around 6 p.m., completely wiped. That's when we noticed it. A tent. Small, gray, kind of old looking. Set up maybe 50 feet from our site, just off the trail. None of us remembered seeing it before we left, and it definitely wasn't there when we set up the day before. We figured, okay, someone set up while we were out. Not weird, right? Except no one ever came out of that tent. We cooked, hung out, waited. Nothing. No fire, no movement, not even a light. It was just there. We tried not to be paranoid about it, but by the time we all turned in for the night, it was on everyone's mind. That night was when things got sketchy. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps, soft, slow, crunching in the dirt. At first, I thought it was one of the guys going to pee, but the steps were too careful, like whoever it was didn't want to be heard. They moved around our camp, pausing now and then. And then, I heard the zipper on someone's tent, but not mine. I sat up, heart pounding. Heard Ty whisper, "Drew?" Drew goes, "Nope. I'm in my tent." No one said anything else. Eventually, the footsteps faded, and we just laid there, frozen. Next morning, we all looked at each other like, did that actually happen? And then we looked over at that gray tent. Gone. No trace. No footprints. No gear. No sign anyone had ever been there. Except, Drew's tent had been moved. Just slightly. Like someone had pulled it, maybe a foot or two toward the trees. We packed up before breakfast. I still have no clue what that was. A prank. A drifter. Or someone out there who does this kind of thing a lot and just waits? I don't know. All I know is I'll never camp that deep in the woods again. We took a camping trip last summer. Me, my wife Jenna, and our two kids, Caleb and Sophie. They're 11 and 9. So they're just at that age where sleeping in a tent and roasting marshmallows is still magic. We picked this little state park about 4 hours from home. Real quiet, middle of nowhere. The main draw was the lake, perfect for swimming, fishing, and skipping rocks. There were only a few other campers there, and honestly, it felt like we had the place to ourselves. The first 2 days were great. The kids swam until they were wrinkled. Jenna read by the fire, and I got to teach Caleb how to bait a hook. It was one of those weekends you hope your kids remember when they're older. Then came the third morning. We were having breakfast, eggs and those sad camping pancakes, and Sophie pointed out at the lake and said, "Who's that guy?" I turned and looked. Out in the middle of the water, probably 60 or 70 feet from shore, was a rowboat. Old wooden thing, faded red paint, no motor. And in it, this man, alone, gray hair, wearing what looked like an old flannel and jeans, just sitting there, holding the oars but not rowing, facing straight toward us. I waved, just to be polite. He didn't wave back. He didn't do anything. Just stared. It was weird, but whatever. Maybe he was just out fishing or enjoying the morning. We finished eating and got ready for a hike. By the time we left, the rowboat was gone. That night, I woke up to this sound. Wood creaking. I sat up and listened. It was faint, but steady. Sophie stirred in her sleeping bag and whispered, "Daddy, the boat's back." I looked through the mesh flap of the tent. There he was, closer this time. His boat was maybe 30 feet from the shoreline, still facing our camp. Not moving, just floating. He wasn't fishing, wasn't paddling, just watching. I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could and stepped out. I didn't want to wake Jenna, but I also didn't want this guy thinking he could just sit there in the dark, staring at my family. I walked to the edge of the lake and called out, "Hey, everything all right out there?" Nothing. Then, he rowed, just once. One long stroke, pulling farther into the dark. I waited a full minute before going back to the tent, but I barely slept after that. Next morning, I walked all along the lake. No boat, no man. I even asked the park ranger about it later that day, and he gave me this weird look. Said, "We haven't allowed boats on that lake since last year. Drought made it too shallow." I didn't argue. We packed up before dinner and left early. I still don't know what we saw. Maybe it was some old guy ignoring the rules. Maybe it was nothing. But that image of him sitting there, dead still in the water, watching us like he'd been doing it for hours. Yeah, that one's burned into my brain. I've gone camping my whole life, but I've never had an experience like this one. It happened last October. Me and my girlfriend Hannah decided to do a weekend camping trip to this secluded lake up in northern Michigan. Total nature getaway. No phones, no people. Just the two of us, some books, and the sound of wind through the trees. The first night was honestly perfect. We set up the tent just before sunset, made a little fire, and cooked dinner. We were surrounded by dense pine forest, but the lake gave us this clear, wide view of the stars. It was peaceful, but around midnight we were laying in the tent, and I heard something weird. It was faint at first. A whistle, not like a bird or wind, a human whistle. Just a few notes, spaced out, kind of like a tune, but off, like someone was trying to mimic a song they didn't fully remember. I sat up and listened. Hannah heard it too. We figured maybe someone was camping farther up the lake. Sound travels weird out there. But we hadn't passed anyone on the way in. There was only one trail, and we hadn't seen a single other car parked at the head. The whistling stopped after a minute. We laughed it off, said maybe it was just some hunter screwing around, and went back to sleep. Second night, different story. Around 1 a.m., I woke up again, not to whistling, but to the sound of something moving just outside the tent, crunching pine needles, slow steps. Then it whistled, right outside. Same tune, still wrong. I froze, didn't even breathe. Hannah clutched my arm. I mouthed, "Don't move." Whoever it was circled the tent. Once, twice, and then the whistle came again, this time from farther away, like they'd backed off into the trees. We waited a solid half hour before I dared peek out. Nothing, just moonlight and shadows. But here's the part that gives me chills. Around sunrise, we packed up fast. No breakfast, no slow teardown. Just get the hell out. As we were walking back down the trail to the car, we passed a tree near our site. On the bark were these deep scratches, about waist high, and above the scratches, Someone had carved a symbol. 3 X's in a triangle shape. Neither of us said a word. We just walked faster. We never reported it. What would we even say? Hi, some guy whistled outside our tent and carved a weird shape into a tree. All I know is, it wasn't some innocent camper. Whoever it was, they were waiting, watching, and they wanted us to hear them.